Sell side pressure continues in the crypto space. When will it stop? We're going to be looking at the answers to this question, as well as a few of my recent trade entries in today's episode of Altcoin Trades. All right, welcome guys. So did I make a mistake in my recent altcoin trade entries? Possibly. So my followers know that I entered a few positions in some of the stronger altcoins, in my opinion, from the charts yesterday during the big dip. But Bitcoin continues to sell, dragging these altcoins down with it. Will the selling subside soon? Well, I think it will. So let's dive into the charts. All right, guys, starting with the Bitcoin, as always, you can see here today's candle is a large red candle. And where I bought into my altcoins was yesterday, around the close of this candle, maybe a little bit lower. I saw that we had dropped out of this megaphone pattern. Of course, I've mentioned this way before, said it was bearish, and that is partly what caused me to sell at 48,000. Of course, knowing 48,000 is key resistance, that was the number one factor I had for selling. And you guys know I went into Bitcoin, really 100% of my trading portfolio, which I never do and I don't recommend. But Bitcoin's not going away, right? And I just had, strong feelings that Bitcoin was going to go from 40,000 to approximately 48,000. That was my target. And so I took 50% off at 47,000 when we were up here on these wicks. Wasn't sure if we were going to quite touch 48,000. Though I left room for the possibility we could wick up to 50 to 52,000. Unfortunately, the bulls were not even strong enough to do that. So I took my final remaining 50% out at just over 48,000. And that was great profit. And the thing about that trade was it was almost a shoe. You knew. If you've been following me, we have been doing this technical analysis. I've been making posts and videos on that 48,000 mark for quite some time. Excuse me, guys. Still have a little bit of a cold. Try not to cough into the microphone, but I apologize. I just can't help it sometimes. So I'll try to pause you if I have a big bout of coughing. Anyways, guys, this is the big cup handle. And this is what I have proposed is going to take place on Bitcoin. Of course, if this all goes well, I proposed this cup and handle before we even started forming the handle because I knew 48,000 was key resistance. Again, that goes all the way back, several pivots in 21 and 22. And then once we came back and hit resistance here in March of 22, you could see that this resistance proved it was a formidable opponent for the bulls, and really we just collapsed thereafter all the way down to our lows of 15,000, and here we are today. All right, so 48,000 is still key resistance. I'm going to try to zoom in here. So we had several indicators showing us that 48,000 was essentially going to be a local top. Not only is that key resistance, but you have this megaphone pattern. And that is a bearish sign when it's ascending. And so I considered a strong possibility we would sell the news upon ETF launch. And at that time, there were not too many analysis. There were some that were suggesting this, but most people were just hyper bulls, moon boys. Now, another key indicator you guys have to watch if you get on YouTube or TradingView or wherever you get your technical analysis. I'm sure it's not just from me. And that I would recommend as well. Yeah, just like you, don't put all your eggs into one basket in investing. You don't put all your eggs into one basket in crypto. You don't put all your eggs into one basket when choosing an exchange. You don't also listen to all of your technical analysis from one person. Um, I mean, hopefully that's not the case. And I say that knowing that I'm telling you guys to listen to more than me. In other words, chasing my followers away. But that's okay. I'm not here to uh, gain a lot of views, get a lot of followers. I'm just doing this because I like to do this, quite honestly. And I'm happy that I have many of you following me and are along for the ride. But where I'm going with all this is now, if you're checking out some of your analyst friends, if you see the majority of them now turning bearish, it's time to start dollar cost averaging in. All right. The market always likes to hurt the majority of retail traders if it can. And what I'm starting to see now is the hyper moon boys and all of the uber bullish analysts are now starting to turn bearish. And they're starting to say things like, I didn't want to admit that 48,000 was going to be the top. I didn't want to be wrong, but I am. So now here's where we're going to go. And some of these uber bulls are turning hyper bearish. It's like they can't have any moderation in their analysis. And so you got to be careful of extremes like that, because I definitely am not in the camp that we're going to go all the way back down to 15,000, barring any new wars, geopolitical events, nuclear war. I don't even like to say that, but this is what our U.S. administration, I know I have followers outside of the U.S., seems to be hell-bent on doing. They just want to start a nuclear war. So if we're fortunate and that doesn't happen, which so far the administration has been getting their way on everything else, if that doesn't happen, we're okay. I don't think we're going back down to 15 or even 20,000. So some of you, I'm jumping over here to my CME futures chart, and you'll note over here near the bottom left of your screen, I'm moving this arrow around. I'm pointing to a gap we have here at 20,290. Some analysts are calling for us to fill that gap. All right, that seems pretty bearish to me. Something has to happen to get us down there, especially with all these ETF entries and the demand for Bitcoin. A lot of the selling pressure we're seeing right now is people unloading their GBTC trusts. As I mentioned in a previous video, the 10% discount there has reached parity. We've got equilibrium. People are taking their profits and running, and they're going to ETFs that have a cheaper fee, quite honestly. All right, so that's where some of this selling pressure is coming in. The other event, of course, is higher than expected inflation. You've got a variety of factors from a fundamental side that is causing this sell pressure. But 20,290 is not, I'm definitely not in that camp, guys. I don't think we're going down there. I've drawn out what I think. This is the handle pattern I have. I have two big support areas here with these channels, these ascending channels. And quite honestly, this 38,000, 39,000, almost 40,000 purple level is huge support as well. And honestly, I think the selling will start to subside once we get here. And this is the way I view the trading for the next several weeks, potentially months, as we go sideways and probably range in this area. All right. Excuse me. So at the end of 2 months or so, maybe it's 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that, we'll probably have some sort of a triangle as the market capitulates and we squeeze ourselves into this low volatility range. I see something like this, and then we either pop or drop. Now, if we do drop, I don't think it's going to be that serious. Honestly, guys, I think these support areas below this $40,000 level will catch us. If they don't, then remember I talked about 31,600. We will, at that point, most definitely, in my opinion, I know that doesn't remain very humble, but I'm almost sure we'll go back to test that 31,600. That is a very significant trend line and is acting as a magnet should we get below these support areas here. All right. For now, I'm of the camp that 38,000 would be our low, potentially only 40,000 before buyers come back in, take us back up to retest the 48,000. At that point would be a neckline for a larger cup and handle pattern. Now, should we break that 48,000, we will be going to 80,000 by the end of this year. All right, that's what this cup and handle pattern is showing, and target would be anywhere from 80 to 100,000. But I don't expect that to occur until the end of the year. And so it's going to take some time. And I'm saying all this just to let you know what I'm seeing here. Now, there is one more thing I do see as I'm looking at this, and the benefit of doing these this analysis on the fly is you get to spot things as you're talking. All right, see this triangle here? This is a descending triangle, and that is rather bullish. All right, so that could mean, guys, that we, let me get out my pen here, bounce off of this 40,000, which is what I'm expecting, go back up here and retest the underside of that ascending megaphone pattern. All right, and then that would create the top part of our range, and we continue to range in here over the next several weeks / months. All right, so that's Bitcoin. That is the summary part of this video on Bitcoin and what I expect. Now, Bitcoin has been, knock on wood, following what I expected to do almost precisely. There was one area recently I didn't expect us to jump right over, but we did, and that was due to the ETF expectations, approval expectations. All right. So, but almost entirely the last 2 or 3 years, I've been able to plot out expected price action for Bitcoin. And I don't see that anything is going to change, barring nuclear disaster or some other devastating geopolitical event. All right. Let's jump into a few of my trades here. All right, on the altcoins. All right, first trade I entered was Bitcoin Cash. Now, I just posted on my Substack that I did put in the stop levels and targets for all of these trades. I quickly went into 6 altcoins, 6 of the strongest. I felt they looked the strongest yesterday during the dip. And still, they remain strong. But there was room on some of these to pull back, as they have been doing today. And I knew that, but I wanted to catch the big dip yesterday in case that was the end of the selling. It turns out it wasn't. But let's just take a look at, first of all, Bitcoin Cash. And you can see here, we are still on the upside of this. Whoops, meant to grab this arrow here. still on the upside of this ascending red trend line, which began all the way back here in August. All right. And Bitcoin Cash is threatening to drop below that. Will it drop below that? I don't know. It could. It doesn't look like it's prepared to do that. It looks like this is just a threatening candle. And tomorrow, I'm expecting we have an update on Bitcoin Cash. But to prepare for any drop below that ascending red trend line, I have put in my stop here, and you can see the stop on Bitcoin Cash. Target is way up here at 245, I believe I got on this one. All right, moving on to Solana. All right, Solana's in the same situation, guys. Solana is threatening a drop below this red ascending trend line. We haven't got there yet, and you can see I have a bullish wedge here printed. I think we're just testing the bottom of that triangle, and actually that hit exactly, the wick down hit exactly the bottom of that triangle, and I think we are going to bounce off of that and go to 125, possibly 150. Nevertheless, you can see my stop here is just below that triangle, so I almost got stopped out. Why is my stop so tight on this one? Well, because once Solana drops below this, it's going to drop hard, and I expect it to come all the way down to at least 65, maybe 50, if we drop below this red trend line. Now, if we drop later, then 60 still would be in the cards, but maybe more like 80 would be the drop too. Anyways, I think today ends this selling on Bitcoin and the altcoin space for a few days. All right, next trade here was H-bar, and H-bar did come below, but until we close out this candle that you're seeing here today, and preferably have another candle tomorrow, I'm not sold that this is confirmation below the red trend line. All right, so again, still we have a little bit of room. Look down here on the RSI. We could come back down to my touch and go line before we bounce. And if that happens, I could get stopped out. That's fine. I'm prepared to get stopped out on this one. I don't want to loosen my stops because it could, the selling could continue. Got to be disciplined with this stuff and be willing to take a loss. And that I am. So anyways, I'm still in that trade as well. All right, so here's Ripple. What's happening with Ripple? There's news that there's a huge whale with 400 million, some Ripple, and he's selling for whatever reason. But we are currently on that red ascending trend line. So again, we still remain on all of these altcoins, in my opinion, in bullish territory. As long as we're on the upside of that red ascending trend line, which for Ripple, we have been since way back here in March of last year, so almost for a full year. So I don't see this line just breaking. We had this wick down here, guys, and then a touch at a lower level of around 49.50 cents. Is that what that is? Yeah. Oh, even lower, 46 cents or so. I don't think we're going to break through this, at least immediately, maybe eventually. So again, my target for XRP is up here at around 72.5 cents, between 72 and 73 cents. All right, next one is BICO. BICO I bought here because that was big support, but knowing that we could come back down and retest our red ascending trend line. Looks like that's what BICO wants to do, and I'm fine with that. I have room here. You can see my stop is just below that. Could I get stopped out with a wick down? Yeah, I could. And I may have to make a quick move and enter back in. But right now, I think that red ascend line for all of these coins, guys, is acting as strong support. The only one that's dipped below that with a new candle, again, is H-bar. So we have to see how this plays out today. All right, final trade was GMX. And GMX is also threatening to sustain a move below that red trend line. All right. But again, we need another candle opening and closing below this red trend line. And you guys know what I like to say. I like to see 3 candles actually. First one closing above or below significant support. In this case, below support. I should say support or resistance. In this case, we're support. So I want to see the first candle closing below support, a new candle opening and closing below that support, and then the third candle opening and closing below that support. That gives me confirmation that the bears are now in control, and we will continue at least sideways, maybe downish action. All right, so that's my review of these altcoins, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that and you know where I stand in all of this with Bitcoin. Again, I think we're very close to seeing some sort of support kick in to where we're not going to be continuing these 3%, 4% down days. It's going to be more like 1 to 2% down and up. And we're going to continue in range for the next 2-3 weeks, possibly up to 2 months. And one thing I have to say, guys, is a lot of times before halving, we will see a big, we will see the MMs move in and drop us real quick, shake out all that leveraged long position that is starting to populate on the charts. And so we could see a quick flash crash sometime before the halving, before we go back up. All right, hope you enjoyed the video all. Peace. Until the next video.